Hello, hello. So here I am in the bomb shelter again, also called the safe room. I am by myself, but I can assure you later on today, this room will get filled up with lots of people who I now call my friends. I have a piece of writing which I would like to share with you about this whole experience. And it goes like this. The bomb shelter, also called the safe room, is not just a room. A few times a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, it becomes a psychological companion, a place of refuge, but also a symbol of what life feels like when danger becomes routine. That's one of the strange things about ongoing threat. Human beings adapt to almost anything, but adaptation has a cost. When a warning siren goes off, the body does not ask philosophical questions. It does not pause to wonder whether we are resilient, whether we are spiritual, whether we are optimistic. No, the brain reacts instantly. The nervous system mobilizes, the heart rate rises, muscles tighten, breathing changes in the body. The body prepares for survival. That's not weakness, it's not pathology, that's how we are built. When this happens again and again, especially at unpredictable times in the middle of the day, in the middle of the night, while eating, while sleeping, experience begins to live not only in the moment, but also in the mind. Hello, safe room, my old friend. I've come to stay with you again because a warning loudly beeping entered my brain while I was sleeping, and the panic that was planted in my brain still remains within the sounds of sirens. Trauma is not only what happens, it's also what happens inside of us afterwards. I personally may leave the siren behind, but the siren does not fully leave me. That's one of the central psychiatric truths about chronic stress. The danger may be outside, but eventually it begins to echo inside. Once that happens, even silence is no longer entirely silent. A person waits and listens and anticipates and braces. When fear is repeated often enough, the brain learns it. The amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, becomes more reactive. Sleep becomes lighter. Startle becomes quicker. The imagination starts scanning for what may go wrong, and the person can begin to live in a state of partial readiness, even when no siren is sounding at all. In psychiatry, we sometimes speak of hypervigilance, conditioned fear, acute distress, a startle response, avoidant behavior, and these are all useful terms and the foundation for what we diagnose as post-traumatic stress disorder. In ordinary language, what it feels like is, quote, I am no longer only hearing the siren, I am carrying it, end quote. However, this is not the whole story because people are far more than their alarm systems. A frightened nervous system is not the same thing as a broken self. We can be anxious, but also brave. We can be startled and still spiritually grounded. We can be exhausted and yet still capable of tenderness, humor, faith, and dignity. This is something I think psychiatry must always remember. When people live under threat, we should not rush to only ask and think about symptoms. We should also ask what in our life is helping us to survive? What strength is being called upon? What human bonds are being formed here in the safe room? Because this bomb shelter is not only a shelter from missiles, it also becomes a shelter of shared humanity. People gather, we look at each other, we exchange glances, conversations, small jokes, we sing, silent reassurances, and in this room, alongside fears, something else appears. Solidarity, togetherness, new friends. Yes, the sound of sirens may and it can enter the brain. Panic can get implanted within us, and repeated alarms can leave a psychological mark. But that's not the end of the human story. The deeper truth is that even when fear enters the mind, it does not conquer the soul. And that's the real meaning of resilience. Not that we stop reacting, not that we stop feeling afraid, but that something within us remains larger than the fear. Yes, we run to shelter, we tremble, we wait, we listen, and still somehow, we still remain human. Hello, Safe Room, my old friend. I've come to stay with you again because a warning loudly beeping entered my brain while I was sleeping. And the panic that was planted in my brain still remains within the sounds of sirens.